So when I first started the channel, my intention was to always include the paths that I go down that just don't work out. Because I really truly believe that we only learn from mistakes, but they don't need to be our own mistakes. And I feel like there's a gap online with all the posts that show you exactly how to get from boot to root, or in other words, all the right things to do through a hack lab pen test, but not a lot of options to show you, okay, well, this is what I tried that didn't work. So then when you go off on your own, as I've found that when I go off on my own, I have trouble figuring out what the best next step is and what I should even try. So yeah, again, that's why I've started this channel. So these are the MisHacks, that's what I'm going to call this series, for that Jangow machine, my first vulnerable machine that I did in the hacking lab as a recorded lab. So here we go. Alright, so for the enumeration phase, the zenmap command was totally fine. And this was the second command that I ran after we did the discovery portion. And this was to discover the open services. Again, this command was totally fine, but there's really no need for that T2 flag. So in a real red team test, it might have been good to try and stay undetected, but there's really no need to simulate that because I'm not even at that point yet. So if you're watching this, I'm making the assumption, I'm sorry to make the assumption, but I'm making the assumption that you are not ready for that point either. So in the future, I'm going to avoid that T2 flag unless I'm actually trying to emulate an adversarial attack. Okay, so this dirbuster command, I do think that it's valuable for enumeration. Just in this vulnerable machine specifically, it did not yield any valuable results. So when we took a look at the graphical web pages through the browser, we already found the really the only thing that would have been worth a salt from dirbuster, which was that PHP page where you make a query, and that was our gateway to finding that user flag, right? So I do think that dirb or dirbuster, if you're okay with just the command line, dirb is what you would use, dirbuster is the graphical user interface. I do think that it is worth checking, typically, for any of these pen tests that we're doing. Just in this particular case, it did not yield any worthy results. Now, on the subject of dirb or dirbuster, just so that you're aware, the word list comes pre-installed in Kali. I do need to double check Parrot, but it comes pre-installed with from Kali for /usr/share/wordlist. The word list is at /usr/share/wordlist/dirbuster/apache user enum, and then there's a 1.0.txt and a 2.0.txt. So that would be the go-to for Apache. There are a few other dirbuster specific word lists for enumerating directories on web pages, but we will revisit that at another time. Oh, okay, so this attempt was actually really classic. You can try this at any point. So I just tried doing the login admin password admin, so admin. I also tried like admin 123, admin password, just the usual default stuff. We could have also probably more beneficial would have been to try and enumerate what kind of hardware it's using, and look for default passwords like that. So, I mean, this was just an Apache server, so no default credentials, but like if we were at a router or a firewall, see what the default credentials are on that, and you can just do a quick Google dorking for that. Okay, so what I'm doing here with the exploit database is I'm again looking for things that ended up yielding no results. So it ended up being that this native recording was only good for enumeration only. So that's why you see in the original video, the enumeration section, I am in different attire than the exploitation section. I did, however, that same night, try some exploitation pathways that just ended up not working out. So this is one of them. So I am looking for a vulnerability in exploit database, or I'm sorry, I'm looking for an exploit in exploit database for the Apache 2.4.18. Ultimately, this didn't work, but I mean, slow this video down so that you can see what I did if it's at all helpful to you. So I think that remote code execution would have been worth checking out. So my next step was to go to Metasploit and try to find that exploitation script right within Metasploit. So I was also searching those CVEs that I saw VS FTPD. Don't worry about the VS. It's just the FTP daemon or daemon. I was searching those CVEs that Perplexity was saying it was vulnerable to for that version 3.0.3. That was, again, a moot point because we could have just used the FTP straight to getting the user flag. So, yeah, these were a bunch of dead ends searching for exploits that were really unneeded at this point. Just as a side note, what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of going through all of the searchable exploits within Metasploit for Apache Ubuntu, FTP Ubuntu, Apache FTP, and it may be a good idea to do so. It didn't yield anything here, but there, may have been something to try within these options. So don't underestimate just the power of guess and test too. That's how penetration testing started, to be honest. So yeah, just make those informed searches and decisions and just poke at it and see what happens. I believe I left this in the walkthrough video, but I wanted to take this opportunity to reiterate. I could not get the regular / key to put in a / on the virtual machine, being the Jangow virtual machine, because the locale was all weird. I never took the time to reset it. I just wanted to move forward with the way everything was. So if you are also having issues with the / key, I found that the one above the 8 on the number pad works, even though the one under the question mark key does not. So, or on the same key as the question mark does not. So if you are using a keyboard without a number pad, you can use this soft keyboard that I just pulled up here. Okay, it may be worthwhile to slow the recording down on this burp suite attempt for the repeater. I did try several different things that just didn't work. Mostly because Listen, friends, reading is fundamental, and I did not read fully on what the actual exploitation attempt was here for getting the user flag, so I did not realize that we were just trying to do a command injection in the URL. So, yeah, if you're going to go through the walkthroughs, then reading is fundamental. But again, it may be worthwhile to slow this down and see what didn't work and try and dissect the why. I'm not going to break it down in this recap because all in all, there would be no reason for it to be effective here. Okay, so this was interesting, and I wanted to show how to get that user flag another way, and I ultimately did. It was through the browser, through the show source, but where I messed up here was that I tried going to the show source, the page source, before doing the command injection, which didn't work. You need to do the command injection, then show source. So I think I showed this in the actual video that I rendered, but it's all a blur now that I'm walking back through this, so maybe I didn't. But I did try that username there, that DESAFIO02. I tried that as the username. It ended up being that's just the username for the process, so that's why it didn't yield any results. So, in case I didn't explain that before. Okay, so this CVE 2017 16995 was me trying to figure out this privilege escalation on the Linux kernel for 4.13.9. I did come to the determination that this Ubuntu machine was running that. I couldn't get it to work, but I did try this, so yeah, this is something that I tried and could not get to exploit correctly. And you will notice throughout this entire presentation that the timestamps are jumping around. That is because I test things out back and forth as I think of them. I endeavor to take better notes for next time, for you, for my blog. So just bear with me on this. Like I said, when I think of something, I try it. So I also took a stab at this dirty cow tactic. I couldn't figure out how to get it to work, but I think if I would have dug into the documentation a little bit more, it may have worked. I pulled that method from another walkthrough for this vulnerable machine. So yeah, if you want to dig into the dirty cow exploit, I have a feeling that you can definitely get that to work on this vulnerable machine. I just didn't have luck with it, and I didn't have the patience to go through that documentation, so I did not continue with this method. Oh yeah, this is also where I realized that the vulnerable machine does time out on the FTP connection, so you may have to log back in several times.